neither one of these teams needs DeAndre Hopkins. Number one, I don't think either one of these teams can afford him, assuming that there are going to be teams that are going to be vying for his services. Thankfully, they don't have to inherit the contract that he received from the Cardinals. And the Cardinals are basically just dumping everybody. And they're going to be the worst team in the league, if not the worst team, one of the worst teams in the league. And they're going to be all in on Caleb Williams, which is going to make it a very interesting offseason for one Kyler Murray next year at this time. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I would think that, maybe Buffalo, obviously Cleveland with Deshaun Watson, they did have something special there in Houston, are probably going to be the front runners for his services. And I know Brian Daboll talked about doing his due diligence. Every team does their due diligence. I mean, that's a term that I just think covers everything and covers everybody. And they don't want to insult any player, and they certainly want to just do right by the fan base and don't want to get the fan base too high about potentially signing somebody like this. But I don't see how the Giants could afford him, and I don't see where the Jets would have room for him on the roster. Right. Even if Aaron Rodgers came to and said, I really want DeAndre Hopkins, he's also not the same player that he was 5 years ago. He's just not. And he does have a reputation in the league, not wanting to practice. It's one of the reasons why Bill O'Brien traded him from Houston. Everybody went nuts when that happened. You looked at the amount of money he was going to make and the amount of money he was going to want, because he was one of those receivers who received that big contract up, first. And it wasn't happening in Houston. So I think he's better off going to like a Kansas City for less money if he wants to win a championship, going to Buffalo to team up with Steph Diggs and being added to that group. That could be kind of interesting. I just don't see it for either one of these two teams here in New York.
Yeah, and Brian Daboll, as you said, left the door slightly open, and that's the team out of the two where you could say, man, the Giants could use another big-time weapon, especially at the wide receiver position after acquiring Darren Waller in the offseason, and that would be great. But I just... After what happened with Kenny Golladay here in New York, and I understand that this was a different regime that brought him in, it's a bad idea. And all you have told me about some of the stuff and the rumblings about DeAndre Hopkins, he put up huge numbers there early on with the Texans. And there was times I thought that he was the best receiver in the league. Sort of the same way I looked at James Harden. Really, really talented, scored a bunch of points, but really when it came down to it, is that the guy that you're going to go and win a championship with? And both these teams have designs on that. Both these teams have thoughts of deep playoff runs, so he's just not the guy. And Rob Saleh, by the way, came out and flat out said, we like our wide receiver room. And so did Mike Vrabel. Every coach yesterday was asked about DeAndre Hopkins. Every single coach was asked about him, and players too. And DeAndre Hopkins, after he heard Rob Saleh and Mike Vrabel say what they said, that they didn't want him on the roster, he tweeted out a bunch of emojis or something that people were trying to read into. I have no idea. But this is not the place, even though it sounds enticing to Giants fans. I could see Giants fans being enticed by DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, because when you put up their skill position players and you put those skill position players against some of the top teams in the league, to me, it's like San Francisco has the most skill.
Sure.
And when you put
outside of the quarterback position.
Well, that's of course. But what I'm talking about is wide receiver, tight end, running backs, interchangeable players, positionless players. San Francisco, in my eyes, is number one in the league, and you compare that to the Giants. The Giants aren't even close. To what they are, especially given the Saquon Barkley situation as we sit here right now. So I can't see the Giants remotely even thinking about bringing this player in. And again, his reputation, it's not great. Everybody knows that he's a great athlete and a great player, but the work ethic and the commitment to the practice and all that other stuff is really where the big question marks reside. And quite frankly, he's now getting a little bit of a wake-up call. It's over.
Sure, yeah.
Like you being the guy now is over. Like it's done. You had your chance in two different places. Now you'll have your third chance. Somebody will give you a chance. And if you get with the right quarterback, you may be able to put up some numbers. But if you're just going for the money somewhere, for some team that, feels like they need another playmaker, and you're with an inexperienced quarterback or a quarterback that's outside the top 15, then I would think, it's just a money play. It's not really about you being a part of a winning team. I mean, if you went to Kansas City and somehow took less money, That would be that.
That would show.
That would be enticing to me.
Right. It would show everybody that DeAndre Hopkins is serious about winning, maybe for the first time in his career. Now, both the Jets and the Giants were in on Odell Beckham Jr. They were. At some interest, some level, and I think the Jets more so than the Giants. They just saw an opportunity, Odell Beckham Jr. and his agent, to get paid ridiculous money to go to the Baltimore Ravens, and that was that. I'm sure Odell Beckham Jr. was really intrigued playing with Aaron Rodgers and the idea of being a Jet, but he just couldn't turn down that contract that he got from Baltimore. So I don't know if DeAndre Hopkins is piquing the interest of the Jets and Giants at all like Odell Beckham Jr. did, and I hope not. But when you look at these teams, the weaknesses as we sit here in June, now the draft is over, now free agency is over. Basically, this is your team. There's going to be those June 1st designations, and guys like Ezekiel Elliott are still out there.
We got 8 guys that fall under the June 1st designations, like Brandon McManus, the kicker from Denver.
Sure, yep.
He's a June 1st designation. But even though J.J. Watt is retired, he's a June 1st designation. And this is all to help teams manage their cap. And Ezekiel Elliott is still out there.
Yes.
And it also goes to show you, most of these guys that are on this list are guys that are injured or overpaid in the eyes of the team that gave them the contract that they initially gave them. And it just goes to show you that the contracts that the NFL players sign, don't mean anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say everyone on this list, you could look at them and say, okay, they've had injuries. They've been the NFL version of Aaron Hicks for the team that they played for. Coming through injuries, can't seem to get it going, and the teams do not want to pay them. And those contracts are not guaranteed.
Right. And it's also guys who are in the NFL world older. I mean, it's not guys that are 24, 25. It's guys in their late 20s, early 30s or beyond that, of course, are getting paid more money than the team wants to pay them.
Yeah. So, it's guys like it is guys. Brandon McManus, the kicker for the Broncos. He may end up with the Jaguars. Jadeveon Clowney from the Browns. John Johnson, a safety from the Browns. J.J. Watt, of course, we just talked about this. Rodney Hudson, he's a center for the Cardinals. Ezekiel Elliott, Byron Jones. Byron Jones got a huge contract from the Miami Dolphins and then blew out an Achilles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now in the Achilles and the rehab isn't going so great, and the Dolphins are like, okay, see you, goodbye, after 2 years.
Yeah. Now, the weaknesses for the Jets, to me, the only thing that I really look at and still am worried about, and I don't know if you're as worried about it as I am, is the offensive line, because I don't feel like they addressed it enough in free agency, and they tried to. They tried to upgrade. They are getting guys back. I understand that. Elijah Vera Tucker and Makai Becton, but Makai Becton is going to be a huge question mark until you see him playing consistently. So that's one thing that I would really, really look at for them. If there's any other moves to be made, is that. And then with the Giants, it is skill position. It really is. And that's why I think that, Brian Daboll was asked in one of his first questions about DeAndre Hopkins, because adding a talent to that wide receiver room, I think, is something that could really put them over the top. But look at what they did last year. I mean, last year with Isaiah Hodgins, with Wan'Dale Robinson when he was healthy. Now you add Darren Waller to that mix and really hope that the rest of the offense around Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones and his ability to run is enough.
Well, I think, Wan'Dale Robinson being back in the lineup, and, of course, you have Richie James from last year.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, again, you look at this list, it's not that great compared to the top 10 teams in the league.
Right.
It's not, and that's one of the reasons why they probably felt like they had to pay Daniel Jones, too, and that's always the argument for the Daniel Jones people out there that support him, that when you look at the group of players that are around him, you could say that, he's the Lamar Jackson of the Giants, because that had always been the argument around the Baltimore Ravens, that they were a run-first team. They were using his legs as opposed to his arm. And now all of a sudden they add all these wide receivers to the mix down in Baltimore. And now Lamar Jackson says he wants to throw for 6,000 yards.
Right.
I think that Daniel Jones is going to have another rough year in terms of he's going to have to do a lot. He's going to have to do a lot. They're paying him to do a lot. And to be able to fit another wide receiver, I don't see it. But maybe that's the team that would consider Hopkins. I just, for some reason, I just don't feel like it's a fit here with this coaching staff. I don't.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, look at the guys that they succeeded with last year. Look at how they sat down Kenny Golladay. Look at the out of nowhere guys that were producing for them. We just saw the list on CBS Sports Network. Those are the guys that thrived with Brian Daboll last year. So he's not going to bring in the prima donna wide receiver who's got a reputation of not working hard and add that to the mix.
And don't forget, the Jets just won a little bit of a bidding war for an offensive tackle that was cut by the Patriots over the Giants, Cajuste. So they're still trying. Joe Douglas is still trying to bring as many guys in as he could possibly bring in and make it as competitive as he possibly can. And that really is directed at one, Makai Becton. They're counting on him. They're hoping that his newfound dedication to his own body is going to pay dividends and that he's going to stay healthy. Even with all the nonsense and moving me to right tackle, hurt my right knee, I don't belong over there, I'm a left tackle. Hey, look, man, they're trying to motivate this kid.
Yeah,
that's exactly what they're trying to do.
It's working to this point. There's no doubt about it. It's working to this point.
I mean, you think about where we were 2 years ago with him, and I told you that at 400 pounds, almost 400 pounds, he was going to eat himself out of the league.
Yeah.
And now finally he's realized that he's got life-altering money sitting there in front of him as a tackle in the NFL. As we see all these tackles making all this big money.
Right. It's also pride, too. I mean, for crying out loud, when people are calling you a bust and say that you're out of shape and all those things, and you hear it, I mean, that's motivation enough, too, isn't it?
Yeah, but I know they're counting on. I know while they're dealing with him publicly in one way, internally they're hoping that they're going to get the best of Makai Becton. That they're going to get a motivated, road grader that he was when he was a rookie.
Yeah,
and that he's going to understand now playing with Aaron Rodgers is going to make him better. Aaron Rodgers will make the entire team better, not only because he's a great football player, just his presence in the building makes the entire team better because it raises the expectations. So now guys like Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner, and Garrett was at the Met game last night.
Yep.
Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner, these are two very loquacious young players. Like they're in your face type players. They're uber confident players.
Yeah.
And they're going to be even more so now with Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback.
Right, and we are in the Aaron Rodgers can do no wrong phase of his Jets career, and he's not practicing still because he's got this strained calf, but all the articles are Aaron Rodgers, even with strained calf, making impact on Jets. It's not like Aaron Rodgers not practicing with new team and critical offseason workouts because he's got a calf injury. It's Aaron Rodgers raising the level of everybody as he walks around the practice field.
Did you see the article that came out, The Athletic, this whole article on Aaron Rodgers and the split with the Green Bay Packers?
I did not know The Athletic.
So it's
I canceled my Athletic subscription.
All right, it's everything that we talked about. Everything about, potentially trying to get Gutekunst fired, to, just really being a total pain in the ass to the front office and Mark Murphy, and his agent calling in and, saying that, you can't believe that you're drafting Jordan Love. You're not drafting. It's the only offensive player you draft in the first round. All of the stuff that we've all heard about is, now all of a sudden has come front and center. And I don't know why. I guess it's an after the fact type of thing. But, it was a messy divorce. In Green Bay.
I mean, it's not unlike people's marriages. And then when someone gets out of it, then they end up being refreshed and everything feels new and everything's going well and you get a different person than you were because of the new environment. I mean, that's basically what's going on here with Aaron Rodgers. And we'll see, if the Packers are the ones with any sort of regret, after how, seeing how this season goes.
Well, he's the guy, I don't want to play. I don't want to go to OTAs. I don't need to go to OTAs. I was the MVP. Why would you want me at OTAs? Well, they wanted him at OTAs the same reason why the Jets want him at OTAs now.
Yeah.
And that's not just to go to Taylor Swift concerts or Knicks games or Ranger games or whatever.
Yeah.
But he is certainly enjoying New York, I could tell you that.
Yeah, no.
I mean, it's been like a completely different set of experiences.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like I'm thinking about, a divorce where a wife would get on the husband for being overweight. And then when they get the divorce, they sees him drop 30 pounds or something, go up and, wanting you to do that for the last 10 years, and now all of a sudden you're doing it. That's what the Packers are probably saying about Aaron Rodgers going to every single OTA practice right now. Wait a second. When you were with me, you weren't doing any of this. Now over there, you're doing all of it? I don't understand. What is it?
You know what it is he and Tom Brady were in the same place way too long.
Yeah.
Just way too long. And whether it was, even under the new coaching staff up there, I mean, he had huge numbers. I mean, great numbers, great seasons.
Yeah.
And, hopefully that's going to be the case here. And he does have a group that I would say, if Breece Hall is healthy, and they're saying good things about Breece Hall, if he's healthy, then, he's got a loaded group of players to play with.
Thanks so much for watching the video.
Please like and subscribe.
And don't forget to hit the bell so you're notified when we're dropping new content.